You might think you have a marriage problem. You don't. You have a transition problem. In this video, I'm going to show you why the state that makes you successful at business quietly damages the connection you have at home, and how to shift it in just a few minutes, particularly that transition from work to home. So 25 years ago, when I was running my legal practice, I was a very successful lawyer. Yet the strategy I had to be successful was based upon control, it was based upon problem solving, and it was based upon a background level of pressure and anxiety. That's what drove me. And what I realized is that whilst that was useful, I was taking that home, and it was affecting my marriage, it was affecting my parenting. And it took me a while to realize that I had to find a different strategy. So I remember vividly at home, I would walk through the door, a busy day, holding a lot of things. And what I was trained to do was to notice what wasn't working as opposed to what was working. So Amala, who worked part-time, often got home a bit earlier, cleaned up the house, prepared the meal, whatever it was, and I'd go straight to the problem, straight to what was not working. And it created such tension because she didn't feel seen, she didn't feel appreciated. All I was doing is problem solving and then wanting to control it, wanting to fix it, wanting to look a certain way. It created a lot of tension and conflict in our relationship. So when I was in controlling state, firstly it was a felt sense. I used to notice my shoulders used to tense up. There was a level of fear and I had to micromanage at times. And of course, because I was under that pressure, I was projecting that energy into the family. And so often it could be quite scary, Amala didn't naturally feel safe because here I was, that big energy, that controlling energy, projecting it into problem solving. And the kids as well, like they knew which dad's coming home. Initially, out of that feeling for Amala of not feeling safe, her strategy was, I've just got to shut down. She'd tried all she could to make things okay, to make it look okay, yet that wasn't working. And once that strategy didn't work, it was, I've just got to shut down a little bit, I've got to get a little more functional. We lost the connection, we lost the intimacy, and that background tension existed for the rest of the evening or the rest of the day. I think for the feminine, because often the feminine is conditioned to please, and the sense for Amala of what was going on was, I can't show this. Yet what occurs is there's a background level of resentment. There's a background level of swallowing down what she really wanted to say. And over a period of time, that's either going to affect her health, physical, mental, or it's going to affect the marriage. And so because she didn't feel safe, because I was such a big energy, I think often she just repressed it, got on with things, made it operational and functional, but there was a level of resentment building up. For me, change, a change often comes from inspiration or desperation. And what I realized is that this wasn't working, to the point where Amala wasn't feeling well. Often she'd have some struggles around her anxiety, and eventually, with support of a coach and a mentor, I decided to put the mirror up and have a look at myself. Because again, I wanted the problem to be outside of me. And it was only with those messages where it just wasn't flowing, there was that tension, we were losing connection and intimacy, that I realized that I got to shift something here. Like, this isn't sustainable. And that's when I started doing some of the deeper inquiry into how I was showing up, what was driving me, my family of origin, my patterns, and that led me on a deep journey. The biggest thing for me in the realization was, because we were running a more traditional model, I was running my legal practice from an office. It was often coming home at the end of a day, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And that's when I walked in to the house in that state of being the business owner. And so it was a real opportunity for me to transition and to bring that awareness. Literally the drive home, parking the car, whether it was in the driveway or before I got home, and developing some skills, some awareness to go, I need to let that business owner go. I can pick him up tomorrow if I want to, yeah, and come into the house in a different way. So typically that was when it occurred, you know, at the end of a day when I was coming home. And then occasionally working from home, I had to develop strategies when I left the office to come into the kitchen. Who was I being? What man was showing up? Once I had the awareness and started to transition, it was a game changer. It's like everything shifted. And I was aware that I was shifting. Instead of that background pressure, I was a bit more present and a lot more open. I felt calmer. And it was amazing, like the children gravitated more towards me than away from me. Amala, I felt more seen. She felt safer. There was more intimacy, more connection, more meaningful conversation. The whole atmosphere was a lot calmer. Everybody relaxed, the systems relaxed, and the evenings became much more enjoyable. And for me, coming home and experiencing that compared to coming home from a place of pressure and control was so beautiful. Because ultimately, as a provider, I was doing a lot of this to support my family. And when I came home and the disconnect occurred, I wasn't feeling appreciated, I wasn't feeling valued. And when the energy shifted, I'm like, wow, this is what I'm doing it for. Yeah, to be here with my family, to be able to connect with them, support them, and have that experience. So one of the first things I do when I work with clients, yeah, and I work typically with business owners who are married, mortgage, kids, is start to talk to them about the different ways they show up. And this is always attention. Yeah, this problem solving, but also this transition. And it's been such a delight to give my clients such simple tools to allow them to realize that when they're consciously transitioning from leader or business owner to husband and father, how different it feels, how different the experience is for their family. And it's one of the foundational tools that I teach in all of the clients I work with and the Freedom Circle groups that we run. One of the fundamental differences is that because we live in such a busy world, particularly as business owners, is that temptation is to spend most of the time in our head. Working with men, what I find is that most of them are cut off from the neck down, because what's been valued in our culture is our thinking mind, our analytical mind, our solving mind, what I call our head bubble. We're often living in our head and our head bubble. It's spinning, spinning, spinning. You may have noticed sometimes you talk to somebody who's busy and it's like they're just constantly talking fast, not making eye contact. You know, they're literally living in their head bubble. And that's often the case when I start working with clients. And one of the foundational practices I teach is embodied presence. And embodied presence is the ability to master this attention. You know, our biggest asset as men is our attention. Where your attention goes, energy flows. So if your attention's in your head bubble here, the feminine doesn't feel connected. The children don't feel you. And so once you start to bring that attention into your body, start to get more present, start to understand how to calm your nervous system, how to regulate yourself. Yet what occurs is that you are a totally different energetic field when you walk in. So from head bubble, to presence. What's fascinating in leadership, because when I started to notice this at home, I also started to inquire, how were my clients leading their teams? How were they leading their businesses? And the studies are clear that the most effective leaders, there are two qualities. One is connection and the other is direction. Every staff member, every employment survey shows that if I feel connection and the direction's clear, then I'm a committed employee. So I started to teach my clients how to lead from connection and presence. Because again, when they're busy in their head bubble controlling, they were getting outcomes, but the team were feeling disconnected. They weren't as engaged. And it's again been such a change. People who lead from presence, connection, and give clear direction get more buy-in, get more alignment, their staff stay, and the culture's so different. What I realized is that the common denominator, whether it's at home, whether it's parenting, or whether it's in business, is you. And when you realize that and realize these fundamental tools, what occurs is that, yes, you can master it at home. You can master it with your beloved, with your children, and with your team. And you move into places of flow, you move into places of joy, you get more effective outcomes without that push energy, without that anxiety, without that striving. And again, So many of my clients come back with such incredible shifts and outcomes that are beyond what they expected. So a lot of my clients wonder where's the best place to start. And often where the most tension is in their family lives. And so typically the business is going okay. It's built on performance. Most cultures are driven by outcomes. And so I think the simple way to start is to start noticing that transition to home. Again, what's some simple techniques that you can do? And, you know, I'm going to take you through one in a minute where you can just simply see what's happening. And when I work ongoing with clients, when they join one of the programs, we also then get them to start cultivating a morning practice so they can get more present, not just for their family at home, but also for that transition to work. Because the studies are so clear. The more present you are, the more effective the relational field, the better leader you are, the better parent you are. The simple transition is, if you think about that drive home and think about that move into the family home, one of the keys is to simply find a place to park your car, and whether it's in the driveway, whether it's somewhere close to home. And all you're doing is firstly acknowledging and noticing, what's my current state of being? Where are my thoughts? Am I in my head bubble? Am I busy? Thinking about business, thinking about the past, distracted. What am I feeling? What's going on in my heart, in my solar plexus? And what's happening in my body? Is there tension? Are my shoulders tense? Are my neck tense? Once you acknowledge just a few breaths and awareness, you can go, okay, now I've got a sense of where I am now energetically. From that, the simple move, once you acknowledge that, is to go, who do I choose to be when I walk through that door with my beautiful family, the people I'm actually working for? And you start to cultivate, how would I stand? Where would my attention be? Would I put my phone down? Would I be more present? Would I be more open? Would I be calm? Would I be welcoming? Instead of looking for the problems, I'd be appreciating all the beautiful things that have been done. That simple practice, 3 or 4 simple steps, will help you absolutely change your experience at home. As we start to practice this, it doesn't mean we're going to master it straight away. And one of the key things in all of this is to start to slow the mind down. So the mind, for most of us, is like a very fast train. It's busy. And if you want to stop a fast train, you don't jump in front of it. You slow it down. So when you transition home, just notice what's your ritual, particularly that first sort of 30 to 40 minutes. Because often I get so much feedback that men want to get on their phone, want to distract themselves, they might reach for a beer, they might want to watch television. So the way to do it is, first there's the transition, and then also what do you do? Is there a space where you can go and walk? Is there somewhere where you can decompress in a useful way? And then what you do is you start to slow that mind down, and it becomes a more solid place of presence and openness. So just notice once you go through the door, what's the ritual? Does the family eat together? Are you present with your meal? Are you really listening and connected with your beloved? All of those are clues as to how present you are. Often what happens is that our attention is stuck in our head or our head bubble. And again, if we start to slow down this busy mind by being able to bring our attention more into our body, more into our emotions, more into the vertical dimension, we start to slow the mind down. The mind will stay busy if your attention's there. And again, it's not about not thinking, it's just not feeding the thoughts. So really bring your attention. The breath is a powerful tool, grounding, noticing your feet, getting on the earth. All of that takes the energy out of the thoughts. And if the energy's out of the thoughts, they will slow down, and the gap between the thoughts gets bigger. What's fascinating is that for most men, this is an uncomfortable shift. And what we know is that growth only occurs when we get out of our comfort zone. And so for a lot of men, they want to stay in their comfort zone, stay busy, think it's the most effective way. Yet the men I work with, when they understand how powerful these tools are and are willing to ease into the edge of their comfort zone, what occurs is that they start to realize just how busy they are. They start to realize that background anxiety. Most men I work with carry a lot. There's a background load, financial pressure. Will the business succeed? Will my team get aligned? Can I provide for my family? All of that's in the background. It's a little bit like the background noise of the fridge. People keep themselves so busy they don't realize. And so when they start to slow down and notice it, the beauty with having a coach and a mentor in these tools is that we can guide them through it. And once that background anxiety starts to relax, which occurs for pretty well all the men I work with, they start to realize that I'm still okay. I'm still safe. Yep, I can relax and be present and be more open. And within very short periods of time, clients just doing 5 minutes practice a day, within a week, within a month, they see huge shifts. And the feedback from their families and their teams are that something shifted here. So what I'd like to offer is a simple practice, and because I've found this work around presence, embodied presence, it's a very simple 2-minute grounding practice. And all it is, again, is starting to notice our attention. So I'm going to take you through a simple practice where you can start to notice where your attention is now, how you think, how you feel, what's happening with your body, and how to shift that. So I've recorded a meditation for you to use. It's a very simple process you can do in the car or in the office before you transition. If you want access to it, please check out the notes below.